secret you keep, the one even you don't understand. This volume holds its true name. Welcome to LibCurio, Library of Curiosity. Shush, please keep silent. And now the next chapter begins.
You wake to the sound of silence, the kind that feels heavier than noise. A candle flickers in the corner of a room you don't remember entering. On the wall, a shadow moves, though nothing in the room has stirred. And then you see it, a skull resting gently beside your pillow. Not threatening, not cruel. Just waiting, a mirror stripped of all disguise. You blink and it's gone, but the air still carries its weight. You walk through your days as though tomorrow is guaranteed. But tell me, when was the last time you felt the truth? That nothing promised is ever truly yours. The ancients carried reminders, rings engraved with bones, coins marked with skulls, meditations written before the dawn. They whispered again and again, Memento Mori, remember death, not to drag the spirit into despair, but to wake it from its sleep, to peel away the veil of routine, the dull illusion that life is endless. The samurai sharpen their swords with this truth. Before stepping onto the battlefield, they rehearse their own deaths, cutting down the fear before the enemy could. Marcus Aurelius wrote his daily reminders not as philosophy, but as survival. And the Zen monk, sitting before the still pond, saw impermanence not as loss, but as the only doorway into freedom. Yet you avoid it. You scroll, you hurry, you plan for futures that may never arrive. So let me ask, what would your life look like if you remembered that it will end? You find yourself walking down a narrow path lined with lanterns. Their flames sway like breathing hearts, though no wind moves the air. The ground is covered in cherry blossoms, not fresh, but brittle. Each step turns them into a soft whisper of dust. Ahead, a gate of black wood rises, ancient and unshaken by time. On its surface, carved into the grain, the words you've been avoiding. Memento Mori. You push the gate, and it yields. Inside, a courtyard unfolds silent, still drenched in moonlight. At its center kneels a figure, a samurai in armor muted by age. His helmet rests beside him. His sword lies across his knees, polished not for war, but for reflection. His eyes are closed, as though he has been waiting centuries for someone to arrive. When he finally speaks, his voice does not break the silence. It deepens it. I die every morning, he says. And only then do I rise. You want to answer, but the words remain stuck in your throat. He gestures toward the ground before him, and reluctantly, you sit. The stone is cold, grounding you in its weight. The samurai continues, his voice a calm tide. When a man clings to tomorrow, his blade is already heavy. He hesitates. He dreams of survival, and in that moment, he is dead before the strike comes. But when he accepts his end before the battle begins, he becomes untouchable. Fear has no hold. You study his face. It carries no arrogance, no bitterness, only clarity, sharp as the steel across his knees. Then the courtyard shifts. Shadows ripple along the walls, and suddenly you are not in Japan, but in Rome. A man dressed in a simple cloak walks slowly along a garden path. In his hand, a wax tablet filled with scribbled thoughts. Marcus Aurelius pauses beside a fig tree, touches the bark, and closes his eyes. His lips move softly, repeating words he has written countless times. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. You feel the weight of those words press into your chest. Not crushing, carving, making space. And again, the scene dissolves. You are now seated in a dim monastery hall, incense curling through the air. A Zen monk sweeps the floor with deliberate grace. His hands move in rhythm with the dust, as though each stroke erases the illusion of permanence. He pauses, looks at you, and smiles not with triumph, but with tenderness. Nothing lasts. Not the dust, not the body, not even this moment. That is not tragedy, it is freedom. The flower is beautiful because it will fall. The images collapse, folding into one another, the samurai, the emperor, the monk, all bound by the same thread. Different tongues, different rituals, but the same quiet truth. The presence of death is not a curse, but a compass. Suddenly, you are walking through your own memories. Birthdays, arguments, the nights you wasted chasing distractions, the mornings you slept through because you thought tomorrow would always be there. Each memory passes like a lantern fading in the dark. And then, the faces of those you love, their smiles flicker, fragile, destined to vanish. It should terrify you, but instead, it burns with urgency. The fragility does not hollow the moments, it makes them ache with significance. Every gesture, every breath, becomes unbearable in its beauty. When you look down, the samurai's blade is in your hands. Its surface reflects not steel, but your own face. Yet the reflection shifts, it shows you old, then young, then gone. 1,000 versions of yourself dissolving like blossoms in the wind. And for the first time, you understand what the samurai meant. To die before you live is not to surrender, it is to be unbound. The courtyard fades, you wake in your room again. The candle is still flickering. On the pillow beside you, the skull has returned. But now, it does not haunt you, it keeps you honest. You carry the skull with you now, not in your hands, but in your mind. It lingers in the corner of every room, a silent witness. Some would call this morbid, the Stoics did not. To them, the skull was a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to an audience. His meditations were not for history, but for survival. Each line whispered against forgetfulness. Do not waste time. Life is a river. You stand on its bank for a brief moment. The current will not stop. He knew that power, wealth, even empire were no protection from the grave. And because of that, he sought to rule himself before he ruled others. Seneca carried the same reminder, but sharper. In his letters, he cut through illusions like a blade through silk. We are dying every day. Even while we live, death shares in our time. To him, mortality was not distant. It was immediate, woven into each hour spent carelessly. He warned that a man who postpones life until tomorrow will find himself already buried. And in the East, the samurai practiced a ritual known as kenshi, the meditation on death. Before a battle, a warrior would imagine his own end in vivid detail, stabbed, burned, cut down until the fear was spent. Only then would he step onto the field, unchained by hesitation. To live as though already dead was to fight without distraction, to move without trembling. Zen arrived at the same mountain from another path. The monks sat in silence, watching breath, watching blossoms fall, watching their own thoughts dissolve. Death was not an intruder, it was simply another form of impermanence. The body fades like incense smoke, the mind scatters like petals on a pond. And yet, in accepting this, the monk felt no despair. He felt liberation. For if nothing lasts, then every moment glows with unrepeatable light. Notice the thread. The Stoic emperor, the Roman philosopher, the samurai warrior, the Zen monk. Different worlds, different ages, but all carried the same truth in their chest. To forget death is to sleepwalk through life. To remember it is to awaken. You might resist this. You might cling to the modern lie that technology, medicine, distraction, and busyness will push death away. Keep it at the horizon. But no horizon has ever been stopped. No machine has ever stilled the river. The denial does not free you. It shackles you to fear. To keep the skull close, however, is not a chain. It is a key. The reminder of mortality cuts away vanity, resentment, hesitation. It dissolves the petty dramas that once consumed you. In its presence, you see what matters, the embrace you have not given, the word you have not spoken, the life you have not truly lived. Death will find you regardless. But if you let it walk beside you now, you will not cower when it arrives. You will nod as one nods to an old companion. And perhaps you will say, in that last moment, what the samurai said each morning, I have already died. What remains is only living. The candle flickers once more, as if remembering the shadows it has cast before. You breathe, and the air tastes faintly of cherry blossoms and old parchment. The skull rests at the edge of your vision, no longer a threat, only a companion. Perhaps life is a series of lanterns swinging above a darkened path, each flame a moment, fragile, tremulous, and irreplaceable. You can choose to ignore them, or you can walk beneath them with reverence, feeling their heat brush your cheeks. You realize slowly that every memory, every failure, every love you thought permanent is already gone or will be soon. And yet, the impermanence does not hollow you. It carves you open, leaving space for wonder, for urgency, for beauty. The samurai's blade gleams in your mind, but now it is not steel. It is the spine of your own consciousness, sharp, alive, awake. The Zen pond ripples with your passing thought. The Roman garden exhales your breath. They converge in this single moment, and you see it clearly. Living and dying are not opposites. They are the same pulse, one hand cupping the other. And as you exhale, there is a strange softness, a tenderness you did not expect. Death is not a thief, nor life a prize. Both are mirrors. Both ask you quietly, do you see yourself? Perhaps the lie was never outside you. Perhaps it was believing the voice that tells you who you are, what you should fear, what you can delay. And now, in the presence of mortality, the voice softens and you listen to something deeper. Your own pulse, your own fleeting, incandescent life. What if every tomorrow you imagined is already gone? What if the faces you remember are only shadows of those who once walked beside you, and the voices you hear are echoes from a life you did not fully inhabit? If the samurai can die 1,000 times before the sun rises, and the monk can release the self before it is even formed, what does it mean for you, who clings to routine and comfort as your days slip like petals into the wind? Could the whisper of mortality be the key to courage, not fear? Could remembering death be the doorway to living as though each moment is precious, unrepeatable, and untouchable? And yet, you hesitate. You scroll, you plan, you pretend. What illusions have you been telling yourself to survive the truth? The skull waits quietly, the lanterns swing. The river of life moves, unstoppable. And you, what will you do while you still have breath to answer it? Perhaps the question is not, how will I die, but how will I live now that death walks beside me? Until next time, stay curious, stay unsettled. Remember that freedom isn't a distant place you reach or a chain you break, but the quiet witness within the shadows you once called walls. In the stillness, the true self begins to breathe. LibCurio never closes, and the next chapter awaits, patiently waiting to unfold in the silence.